10 seconds, Super.
Kiss my hot lip.
I want you to hold it between your knees.
There's never a cop around when you need one.
You got a little pretty mouth, ain't you?
Well, do you, punk?
I'm gonna nail you for picking your feet in Poughkeepsie.
This cat chef is a bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
Welcome to Vintage Video's 12 Days of Christmas, where as a special treat this year, we'll be reviewing all of our Patreon poll options for December of 1973, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today marks the 50th anniversary of the release of Fantastic Planet on December 1st, 1973. It was written by Roland Topor and René Laloux, based on a novel by Pierre Perrault, directed by Laloux, and released by Argos Films. In 1957, dentist Pierre Perrault saw his science fiction novel, Hommes en série, or Hommes by the Dozen, published under the pseudonym Stefan Wul. Director René Laloux met art director Roland Topor 7 years later, and 4 years after that they began collaborating on an adaptation of the story, retitled On the Planet Yam, or however you pronounce this, Yagam, Y-G-A-M, on its way to Fantastic Planet. Though the direct translation seems more likely to be The Savage or possibly Wild Planet, from La Planète Sauvage. The French subtitles translate it to Wild. At the time, France did not have a studio available to animate the project, and they relocated to, at the time, Czechoslovakia. Unfortunately, the production was paused by the Soviet invasion of the region, and animation eventually resumed in Paris, and the end was rushed a bit for financial reasons, but it released in time to win the Grand Prix at the '73 Cannes Film Festival. Supposedly, there were around 10 more minutes of planned animation, and as a result, the ending seems to wrap up unexpectedly quickly. The animation was done OG South Park style, with drawings literally cut out of paper and stop-motion animated.
Are you really going to call that South Park style?
Yeah, they originated it. And then back in 1973, they stepped out of a time machine.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a whole... Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about some other people that do it.
I'm just saying, there's a whole history of animation here. We're talking like limited animation, Hanna-Barbera, even all the way to back to like Lot Renninger and, you know, other cutout animations from the region.
But it was popularized by South Park. I'm just kidding. No, that's not true.
Yeah, okay.
It's also similar to the animations of American Python Terry Gilliam, though I discussed recently with Ian Graham on his Cult Connections podcast that Gilliam's work seems specifically inspired by the works of Carol Zeman. When it landed a distribution deal in the US, it became the first animated film to earn a PG rating. But I think that was pretty early on in the ratings system, because I think we mentioned in our review of Oliver that it was the first G-rated Best Picture winner because it was new that they were awarding things ratings like that, and that was 68 that came out. Over the opening credits, we hear the chirps and whistles of wildlife, and we start picture with a young mother running through a forest with a baby held tightly to her chest. At the top of a dirt hill, she finds her path blocked by an enormous blue hand that repeatedly flicks her down the hillside. She tries running the other way, and her path is soon blocked by large seeds being placed in front of her, and she changes direction again. Eventually, the same blue hand lifts her 20 feet off the ground and then drops her. She looks up at the face of her confused baby and then dies. We zoom way out to show the enormous blue creatures who have been toying with her. We will come to know these as drags, and they appear to be children who are disappointed that one of the small animals they were playing with has stopped moving. Master Sinh arrives to the area, and the young drags run away, fearing they'll be in trouble. Another young drag named Tiwa is walking with Sinh and notices the dead mother. Tiwa plans to take care of the orphaned homme, which is what they call humans. It's also the French word for man. The homme will be named Terr, and his adult voice is suddenly here narrating the film. He explains the Master Sinh is the Grand Master of the Drags and saved Terr's life by allowing Tiwa to adopt him. At home, we see Tiwa's mother kneeling on a circular cushion and staring into a floating red bubble in which she sees herself reflected. Tiwa wanders in to show off the baby homme she's found, and Father admonishes her for interrupting Mother's meditation. Father and Tiwa place Terra in a machine and flip a switch to apply a collar, which tightens firmly around the baby's neck. The machine also generates a bracelet that Tiwa can use as a magnet to pull the baby toward her whenever it might get away, so she doesn't lose track of it. The baby is obviously terrified, but Tiwa keeps flipping the switch to drag the baby across the floor until Father reminds her how fragile hommes are. Here is where Tiwa chooses the name Terr. Later, we see mother and father in profile meditating, and their eyes turn red as their images materialize in a pair of red bubbles. The bubbles float up into the sky through the open roof of the house. The bubbles join a swarm of identical bubbles in the sky, presumably from other drag homes, all simultaneously meditating. We cut to a business meeting about a local housing development. I guess you could call it drag housing. It seems as though the machines used in their construction are showing unusually accelerated signs of wear and tear. A scientist also explains to an amphitheater full of drags that the ohms they have collected from Terra have been reported to show unexpected levels of intelligence, but the scientist thinks that assessment requires more research. So it looks like the way their government works is they have a small room of representatives discussing things who are being broadcast on screens outside the room for a larger audience to be keeping track of what's going on in their government.
And I think we gather that this is one of many of these like amphitheaters of
and probably many
drags
planets.
Meeting. Yeah, so there's like multiple locations of these. So they are one of
a hive, sort of.
Of many units, yeah.
The scientist cites as evidence films collected on the Ohm homeworld that depict an advanced civilization, but the accompanying slideshow is scarecrows, broken brick walls, unfinished railroad tracks, and toppled buildings. Hardly our best work. Show them Breaking Bad.
It seems as though that this must be like post-apocalyptic future, that this stuff has deteriorated and they've resorted to like a Paleolithic sort of time.
It's
period.
like Adventure Time era.
Yeah.
Where you just see like little hints and remnants of the past world.
I also like that for the photos, they're just hand-drawn sketches.
Right. That it seems like they just went to the planet and drew them on paper.
Yeah.
The drags seem impressed nonetheless. Some, at the central meeting, blame the setbacks in their construction on a number of wild ohms that have infested the location. The drags have utilized several methods of extermination, but ohms are highly adaptable and have learned to survive and escape what has been tried thus far.
I think it also talked about how they breed like crazy.
Yes, they have much shorter lifespans, and so they're able to multiply much faster.
Yeah, so I gathered that to mean that the dregs are, because of their size, time basically stretches longer for them.
Yep. Back in Tiwa's home, we see Terr dressed in a circusy outfit and trained to do tricks like walking on a big ball in exchange for food pellets. Tiwa swaps Terr's outfit for a helmet with a large ring attached, and the angry infant bites Tiwa's thumb hard enough to draw blue blood. Terr runs and hides under some furniture and watches a group of 4 adults meditating, or possibly meditating. I'm not sure what they're doing.
Yeah, they're kind of like phasing in and out of existence.
Yeah. Black tentacles reach out to them from the sides and ceiling of the room, and the 4 drags are slowly blended across the torso into each other, into a single amorphous blob, and then their bodies sort of wither and disappear and then reform and grow back.
Well, we find out later what they're doing when they meditate.
Right. But the meditating, I think, is just the bubble thing. I don't think what's happening here is meditation.
Oh, see, I figured that they were related.
It's possible. It's never really spelled out. So I've heard people compare this to if a dog watched us watch television and you're like, what is that person doing? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing happen. We're like,
Sure.
oh, this is totally normal to them. But to this animal, this lesser being, we have no comprehension of what they're doing to each other. Tiwa grabs Terr and gets in trouble for interrupting again. This time, Father blames the Ohm. Later, Tiwa places Terr on her vanity as she applies makeup, and Terr swaps out some of her makeup products while she isn't paying attention. Tiwa accidentally smears a black smudge on one cheek and then blows the rest of it in Terr's face, causing him to cough and probably get black lung or something. Yeah. Exactly. We cut to Terr, presumably attempting to run away, and Tiwa chases him around the house with a miniature rain cloud, drenching the child, and occasionally striking him with tiny lightning bolts. This is like terrible, terrible torture, but I'm guessing this is supposed to represent like a shock collar on a dog. Terr appears to be 10-ish now, and we cut to a language lesson where Tiwa teaches Terr to say Terr loves Tiwa.
Terr aime Tiwa. Répète. Terr aime Tiwa. Répète.
When Tiwa goes to sleep, her body coils like a snake. Terr's narration comes back to inform us that Tiwa attends school through a headset, which transmits information directly into her brain. The information is permanent. We hear a snippet of a lesson and learn that this planet is called Yam or Yagam, It's part of a binary planet system orbited only by another uninhabited planet called the Wild Planet. Unless this is a moon and they're just calling it a planet. But they only ever refer to it as a planet. So it's possible they have decided that this moon is actually a very small planet.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules would be for that. Terr is able to absorb bits of these lessons just from proximity. One morning, a new season begins on planet Yam, where crystals form at the base of the plants and homes in Tiwa's village. Tiwa lets Terr walk outside and just watches until a crystal forms around the Ohm's legs and traps him in place. The crystals rise up his whole body and he panics until Tiwa whistles and the crystals all shatter off of him. Terr wanders around the area and whistles to shatter all the crystals he finds. Sometime later, Tiwa and Terr are roped into a group of kids who are forcing their Ohms to fight against one another. First, we see 2 female Ohms with their hair tied together until the battle is broken up. Terr is placed in the circle, and another Ohm makes many threatening gestures and sounds, which the drags interpret as beautiful singing. But Terr interprets as annoying as fuck, and he strangles the man to the ground until Tiwa pulls him away, and they're like, wow, that one was really rude. And it's like, these other 2 were trying to kill each other also.
Yeah.
We cut away to Tiwa's parents inhaling smoke from a plume rising through the middle of the house. Terr takes advantage of the distraction by activating Tiwa's educational headpiece, and her parents find it amusing how attached he is to it. After some time, Dad doesn't think it's cute, and forbids Tiwa from holding him during lessons. When Tiwa finally reaches the age of meditation, she's marched down the road with all the other kids her age, and they enter a large building from which more bubbles soon rise out of the roof. When Tiwa returns home, Terr is nowhere to be found. Even her educational headpiece is missing. And we cut to Terr dragging it through the wilderness, over and under all sorts of obstacles. Tiwa's mother suggests she activate her bracelet at maximum power to bring him back, but Tiwa worries it could hurt him. We cut back to Terr as the bracelet is flipped on and he's dragged toward the house, but the headpiece snags on some underbrush. A wild Ohm approaches from the wilderness and snips off Terr's necklace and lets it loose back to Tiwa. She also wears a necklace, but it's fake, so that drag don't recognize her as a wild Ohm out here. She's frightened when the headpiece speaks, but Terr assures her it is harmless, and even useful. She offers to lead him somewhere safe. We see a weird elephant blobfish thing in a cage, and then a small alien bird lands on its trunk. He shakes it to death and then splatters it on the floor just as Terr and the female Ohm drag the headpiece by. But I love that it's just doing this for fun.
I love all the creatures that we come across throughout this entire film.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a book that I had when I was a kid. It was the ice cream cone coot.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Did you guys have that one?
Mm-mm.
I'm just gonna show you. So like, they had like it's a whole book full of like birds made out of like other objects.
Oh,
and
interesting.
It's just very much like the art from this film.
I had this book from like the late 70s, early 80s about the universe.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's got like stuff about the planets and all that, but it gets into like these really crazy like 70s style artist interpretations of what alien life might be.
Oh yeah,
like
I think I might have seen something
on these
like that.
planets.
Where they're like the Jupiterians or like these squat fat creatures.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There's like these like Saturn has like these like jelly squid things that float in the atmosphere and stuff like that. It's all these really cool drawings.
That's great.
It just reminded me of this too. Also, I don't know if I guys showed you guys that short Scavengers. It just got turned into a series on HBO.
Oh, you did mention that part. I don't remember if we watched the original.
Yeah, like the original short like came out like maybe like 6 or 7 years ago on Cartoon Network. But totally reminds me of this too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just like that kind of like Mobius style artwork. And
Yeah, there's definitely connections to Metal Hurlan from this. A large four-legged creature passes over them, but dragging a long tongue on the ground. It never touches them with it, though I think we're supposed to be worried that's going to happen. The woman leads Terr back to a wild Ohm settlement in a tree in an abandoned park. The wild Ohms make fun of the outfit that Terr escaped wearing, and everyone laughs.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. One Ohm laughs so hard that he repeatedly bashes a club against a fleshy rectangular prism, and Terr tries to warn him it's a trap, but he does not heed the warning, and the prism awakens and swallows the man whole before sinking away into the dirt. It kind of reminds me of the weird boxes that they describe in At the Mountains of Madness. But I think in that one they're like hexagonal prisms or something like that. They're like kind of barrel-shaped, but they have like mouths on either end that they seem dormant all the time, and then suddenly they just like they're left alone with someone and they come back and the person is gone and the thing is still there.
It's like a mimic.
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Another Guillermo del Toro thing, right?
Oh,
Unless
yeah.
you're not talking about
No, I
that
wasn't
mimic.
talking about that. I was talking about like,
The Pokemon.
treasure chests that eat you.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Because, yeah, Guillermo del Toro for a long time was attached to the At the Mountains of Madness feature film, and I guess Sony kept, like, doing the same thing they're doing to Genndy Tartakovsky on his Samurai Jack movie, where they're like, just do this other thing first, and then he's like, okay, fine, I'm going to go to a different studio because you're driving me crazy. The man in charge here is a wizard, or he calls himself one, and he doesn't trust Terr because he brought the headset of knowledge. The Ohms inform the wizard that Terr recognized a trap, and he can tell what is in all the other cases they've collected because he can read drag markings. He tells them the next case has colored powder, probably makeup, and they confirm his prediction, though he didn't specify that it's like heat-seeking powder that will chase you around and choke you. A cloud of red powder chases the man who opened the case until he falls to the floor. In the middle of the night, Terr sleeps in the center of the headset on the floor, and he hears something outside. When he peeks out, he sees a line of Ohms visiting the wizard, who holds a blanket full of glowing stones, and he gifts one to each Ohm as they pass him. After collecting the stone, they all glow in the night. The woman who led Terr here strips nude, and all the other Ohm follow her example. They run naked into the distance. Sometime later, a collection of Ohms are learning from the headset together when the wizard sends a henchman to knock the headset to the ground, interrupting the lesson. He insists that all drag knowledge is inherently evil. As punishment, they must fight each other with tiny dinosaurs strapped to their chests. It's like the Beat It music video, but with dinosaurs. The creatures bark back and forth until one gets a good chomp into Terr's shoulder, and then Terr fights back, and his creature tears the other dude's throat out. The fight is over, and the wizard stabs Terr's dinosaur through the head to welcome him to the Big Tree Society.
I feel like a lot of people are upset by when Terr's dinosaur thing chomps on the other guy, as if this isn't an expected result.
Yeah, right. That's his only option to survive here. The next day, Terr is stripped nude and left in a field with a bunch of creatures that barf pink foam all over him. The foam recedes, and suddenly the creatures are weaving a toga around him. A circle of girls dance and laugh around him, and then lead him back to the tree in his new outfit. Later, we see a field of wormy tendrils awoken by rain as Ohms cross a plain over them. They are planning a mission to steal drag food for their village. We see them carrying back a long line of the same crates that Terr was translating for them earlier. Presumably they won't have brought back any traps this time. Unless they wanted traps. Terr can't get his crate the whole way back to the tree and collapses within sight of it. Suddenly, a trio of spears are dangling above Terr and another villager with an octopus hat. Octohat identifies the culprits as the Hollowbush Bandits, a rival tribe of presumably Ohm, but we don't actually see them here. We see another collection of Ohms absorbing another headset lesson, and when the lesson ends, Terr restarts it. A girl, impressed with Terr's mastery of the headset, suggests that he's the smartest of all the Ohms, and they begin making out. Sometime later, a birdish creature is pecking through the roof of their tree, and everyone runs around panicked. A sticky tongue lowers into the tree and squirms around collecting Ohms from the tunnels. A crowd of Ohms manage to catch the bird outside, and they shred its wings with their hooks and tear the creature down to the ground before chopping it up to eat. Terr literally bathes in its fountaining blood. The seasons change again, and the landscape turns slightly blue. A message has been painted on the wall around the park that houses their tree, and Terr is asked to translate, and it reads, De-Ohm, meaning the park is due for extermination. The wizard and Octopus Hat disagree on how to address the threat. The wizard blames the forbidden knowledge and suggests praying to the wild planet, but Octopus Hat says they should prepare to defend themselves. That night, Terr crosses the park to the territory of the Hollowbush Bandits when he is clocked in the back of the head by another Ohm with a heavy club, possibly a member of that rival tribe. They crowd around his unconscious body, and we dissolve to Terr being carried into their home base, which looks like a cave under something shaped like a mushroom cap. Their village elder asks why Terr has come here, and he warns them of the impending drag attack tomorrow. At first, they don't believe him and tie the boy up to toss him in a hole, but they inspect the sign for themselves. Not that they could read it, but they would be like, well, there is a sign there.
Yeah.
Maybe it does say something. Early the next morning, a white token taller than Ohm rolls into the Hollowbush stronghold and falls on its side before off-gassing into the cave. We see another device firing hundreds of these tokens all over the park in every direction.
It seems really inefficient.
Yeah.
They're just like throwing them all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like you could just come in here and roll a couple of these into the specific shapes of the park and be set. When the Ohms finally start waking up, we see them choking and then collapsing. Nearby drags approach with tamed Ohms on leashes wearing gas masks to lead them to the stragglers of this onslaught. The village elder cuts Terr's bindings to free him in return for the genuine warning he brought them the night before. She leads him out the back door of their base, and he invites them to the tree of his own people. Some of them are intercepted by poison gas, some by the tamed Ohms on leashes, and some by holes dug in the dirt, but a few make it to the tree. When Terr gets inside, he finds the tree's inhabitants all dead on the ground, except his mate, and together they drag the headset of forbidden knowledge back out of the park into the wilderness. They find more survivors outside the park, including Octopus Hat, and it seems like both Ohm tribes have combined their survivors into a new group. A pair of drags walk by and discuss what a nuisance the Ohms are, fun as pets but a dirty thieving species, exceedingly worthy of extermination. They notice the survivors beneath their feet and hastily plan to stomp out the new colony. Many are crushed, but Octopus Hat leads a counterattack, and they begin slicing into the feet of the drag with their weapons.
Can you imagine that? It's like, first of all, if you're sadistic enough to like go outside and it's like, oh man, look at all these like mice that are out here. I'm going to squish them. But then all of a sudden
You're
mice...
completely swarmed in them.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because the other friend who's just watching his friend get like devoured by the Ohms is like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm not hanging around for this.
Very Gulliver's Travels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're definitely Lilliputian, but it also reminds me of like the end of My Girl, basically, where it's like, you would think that these little things can't possibly do anything, and then if there's enough of them, and you're small enough compared to them.
He was allergic.
What is that question that people ask? Like, would you rather be attacked by a duck-sized horse or a 100 horse-sized ducks?
Yeah, 100 horse-sized ducks is
Wait,
the
no.
worst.
That's not it. It's something like that.
One duck-sized horse or 100 horse-sized ducks. That's terrible.
Yeah, that's
definitely kick that pony over the wall. Pony punt.
Strike that. Reverse it.
Yeah.
It's like Night of the Lepus, but with ducks.
In the aftermath, one drag has been killed and many Ohm corpses are strewn about the area, including Chief Octopus Hat. The Hollowbush Elder orders the survivors to follow her to new shelter if they are to survive what they've just accomplished together. They pass a forest of zippy oyster plants, another forest of whippy tails, and a desert of pea pods on the way to a magic road.
You're just inventing these names.
No, these are the clinical species of... No, what? Where would I get that?
I don't know. There might be a show Bible. I don't know.
I am famous for making up names for things on this show. The magic road has paths running in both directions, and the elder informs them that the road leads to a rocket dump where they will be safe. How do you know that? Have you been over there?
Yeah,
and if so, why did you come back? The Ohms step onto the road, which acts as a conveyor belt to their destination. Back in the drag amphitheater, the drag officials are in shock at the death of one of their own at the hands of the seemingly harmless Ohm and order more frequent and extreme extermination attempts. They had no idea how vastly outnumbered they were by the Ohms. Drags who participated in the morning's effort report that crates were located in the tree base and sorted by their contents without having been opened, suggesting the Ohms can read their language.
But if you think our government is slow to take action, these drags...
Dragging their feet.
Oh, that's where that came from, actually. They step up the gassing schedule at the park and ban the unmonitored breeding of domesticated Ohms, since so many have escaped over the years. Master Sinh tells them that it's wrong to label the species vicious animals since they were clearly acting in their own self-defense. He worries that they're taking these decisions too far. We see a lizard with no arms hatch from an egg, and a creature that looks sort of like it sits beside it and licks it a few times before swallowing it whole. I can't tell if maybe they are the same species, but this is not the mama.
Well, maybe it's like those fish that like suck in their babies into their mouth to protect them for a while.
Cannibal fish, you mean?
There's also plenty of species that eat their young if the young are not separated from their parents.
Yeah, that's true. My mom tried it.
Oh, my baby back, baby back, baby back.
Dripping with sauce. Wider, we see this is just outside the rocket dump, and the Ohms have built a new city here with the intent to build a rocket from these parts to take their people to the wild planet in the sky. With science gleaned from the headset, they're able to build all sorts of technology, including a device to shrink full-size rocket materials down to their size. Soon, a rocket test is underway, and Terr suggests that the drags might interrupt this last chance of escape with another attempted extermination. A small drone ship lands outside the dump, and smaller ships are released into it that blast large white circles into the junkyard, staining a lot of the technology they were relying on to escape. But the Ohms are able to hide behind surfaces for the entire sweep and evade detection. The ships return to the drone and are flown back to the drags. The first rocket test is underway. The Hollowbush elder tells Terr's mate that she cannot come on the journey, that she herself cannot come on the journey, not that the mate can't come on the journey, but urges her to make a good future for their people on the wild planet. The old woman dies, and suddenly, outside, a spotlight seems to be sweeping along a row of Ohms and killing them on contact. Where did this come from? I thought they just left, and now they're all getting killed again? A hovercraft vacuum slides by and scoops up another handful of Ohms.
I like the giant ball that
Spheres.
Just
rolls.
Yeah.
rolling over them.
Like critters.
Yeah.
Critters too.
2 rockets are launched into the sky as more vacuum tubes and massive metal spheres slide through town, sucking up and crushing all the Ohms left behind.
How many ohms do you think you could fit on this rocket? Because there's like a minimum viable population in order to repopulate, right?
Yeah, they seem pretty small, these tubes, actually. The rockets land somewhat safely on the wild planet, right beside the headless marble statues of a whole crowd of drags. The Ohms inspect them closely, but then run away when red and blue bubbles from meditating drags float near and land on the necks of the headless statues. It turns out the red bubbles come from Yagam and the blue ones come from another planet, and the meditation technology is a way to interact physically with otherworldly races.
I feel like these headless statues are very Return to Oz.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Mombi.
Because they're all in like they're all in these
Dancing.
like these
Yeah.
like dancing like poses and then they get heads back.
The bubble-headed statues suddenly move fluidly as if made of flesh and dance together. It's a mating ritual, and the Ohms watch from the shadow of their ship. They prepare to launch the rockets again to avoid the marble stomping of the dances, but learn quickly that a well-placed laser blast will shatter the statues to bits. As they knock them down, drags on Yagam are broken from their meditative trances, and even some of the machines killing the Ohms at the rocket dump are deactivated by this. The decapitated bubbles are sent fluttering back into space, and back on Yagam, the people they were connected to wander blinded back to the amphitheater. The scientists prepare to declare war on the Ohms. Master Sinh overtakes the broadcast and suggests a peace between the races and between the planets.
So my understanding is that this is some sort of meditative breeding,
Yes, I think so.
because they talk at some point about the exchange of I don't know, not DNA, but whatever they have
Yeah,
in order to
something is being communicated by these meditative dalliances.
right. So by destroying that, they've essentially doomed them to not be able to reproduce.
Right, but they solve that right here.
Right.
Because Master Sinh says, we're not going to be able to kill these things because they can like build rockets, they can do whatever they have to do to keep living.
So
So
can't we
here's
all
what
just
we'll
get
do.
along?
Yeah, let's be friendly. And the resulting peace leads to a sharing of technology and ideas that allows the Ohms to create a second artificial satellite to serve the purposes of the wild planet where drag bubbles could go to dance with alien bubbles. So the Ohms take over the first organic wild planet.
Right. And you go over there and have your sexy time.
They make a second, or I guess a third planet for
Yeah.
the headless statues.
Fantastic one.
A fantastic one. We fade to black for the credits. So that's Fantastic Planet. I do feel like the ending is a bit rushed,
Yeah.
but the art is obviously gorgeous. I love the creature design for everything.
Yes.
There's not much of a story here because, I mean, there's obviously a terrible conflict in this extermination that's going on.
Right.
But because it's all kind of sorted out in a very friendly way without much hassle, then it seems
Well,
like...
but I think I think it's really a poignant message though about, trying to put yourself in
Sure.
the position of these other creatures that we interact with on a daily basis and how we potentially downgrade their intelligence
Right.
and treat them in unusual ways or harsh ways, killing them.
Which is interesting because, I mean, here on Earth, obviously, even today, there are people who do this kind of dehumanization to people who are the same species as them.
Yeah.
And so to see it happen between two intelligent species that are sharing a planet together just because they are so vastly different in their physical appearance.
Which actually may even be closer to the point because the dregs actually look as human as the human ohms do.
That's true, yeah.
You know,
I mean, they could be different breeds of the same species separated by
they're
enough
just
time.
different sizes, really, and, you know, semi-different features in the hair and I guess how they procreate. But, you know, they have a lot of features in common.
Yeah.
It's very different from a Planet of the Apes situation where humans are more primitive.
Yeah.
And, humans are primitive here just out of necessity because they don't have stuff, but they have the ability to rationalize and to organize and to plan. Where the humans in the Planet of the Apes are just gatherers, you know.
Right.
So I think it's strange that the drags are just oh no, they're stupid animals. It's well,
it's aren't you an advanced civilization? Don't you have some kind of a test to see how stupid they are?
But I guess they just don't care. They're that advanced. It's
But if dolphins were bipedal and they could pick up our language just from talking to us for an afternoon, I feel like there would be no question as to their intelligence. You would just be like, oh yeah, no, I get it. Joe, love, Poe.
No, we haven't gotten to that one yet.
Yeah, right.
No, but the movie was great. I think it's visually stunning. I think it's an engaging narrative, even if it's not a lot happening.
Sure.
It's still entertaining to watch. I have no issues with it.
The only issue that I have, and it's certainly not even an issue, is I would have liked some closure with Tiwa.
Yeah, because she kind of she goes meditating one day and then she comes back and her creature's gone and that's the end.
Yeah, I was I would have liked some, because she seemed genuinely she doesn't want to turn on the magnet.
Yeah.
It's no, it'll hurt him. She actually genuinely cares. I mean, as much as that she put Terr through a lot of crap, but that's little kids with animals unsupervised. They're cruel because they don't know that they're being.
But maybe
cruel.
that could have fallen into the 10 minutes of
missing
footage of that there was in fact a drag to bridge the gap.
Yeah, other than Master Sin, which it kind of comes out of nowhere that he's the representative of this entire other race that they're sharing the planet with.
Well, he's throughout the movie he kind of speaks out against we shouldn't just exterminate him.
But he also seems kind of mean to the one that's in his home.
Yeah.
But we also, because we cut away from the mother and daughter arguing about the bracelet at the end, get the impression that mom said, turn the bracelet to full power, and the girl said no. And then we cut to where Terr is, and it's pretty clear that mom took the bracelet away and turned it up to full power.
Yeah. But why?
Because those head pieces are expensive. I think that's literally it. It's you lost your textbook. Your fucking gerbil took your textbook.
Your father is a member of government. You can't go missing your pet ohm.
Yeah. But it's these are just, it's dumb, expensive school supplies. It's they're going to change the headset next semester. We'll have to get a whole new one. I'm not buying you another $200 headset. Turn on the magnet.
But I liked it.
Yeah, big thumbs up for this one.
Yeah, thumbs up,
for sure. Thumbs up.
Our writer-director here was René Laloux. He also wrote and directed The Masters of Time and Gandahar. Another writer, Stefan Wul, that was the pseudonym, wrote novels adapted into both this and The Masters of Time. The writer of the adaptation, Roland Topor, previously co-wrote Roman Polanski's The Tenant and appeared in 1979's Nosferatu the Vampire as Renfield. So he wrote and illustrated this, was the art director on this film, and played Renfield opposite, what's his name from Schizoid?
Klaus Kinski.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. I was trying to go to his daughter's name first.
For some reason, I kept thinking of, because of Fitzgeraldo, I kept thinking of Werner Herzog, and I was I can't get another German name right now. The cinematographer here was Boris Baramikin. He also edited Jan Svankmeyer's Jabberwocky short.
Ooh.
The editor here was Rich Harrison for the English version. He has editorial credits on Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Bonkers, Goof Troop, Tailspin, and the OG TMNT show. Yves Barsacq did the voice of Ohm in the French version. He was Robert in The Toy. He's DuPont in 39 episodes of the early 90s Adventures of Tintin. Gérard Hernandez did the voice of Master Taj. He's the voice of Atmospherics in the 2018 Asterix movie.
Okay, hold on. I have to stop you here. Did you guys watch this in English?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going through the French voices, and then I'm going to go through the American voices at the end.
Okay.
There are American voices?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a dub.
Yeah, the Criterion has an American dub of it.
Oh, I
wanted to watch the original because I think there are actually two different edits.
Now, I assume the original is in French because it was for Cannes?
Yes.
Or...
Well, it was a French,
but it was
Czechoslovakian co-production.
But there wasn't a Czech version where it was in Czech.
No, that was just where it was being animated.
Yeah.
Not even for the whole thing, but I think for most of it. Philippe Augaus did additional voices. He's the voice of Ken in Fist of the North Star. Denis Bollier does additional voices. He's the third voice of Chief Quimby on the Inspector Gadget series, and he voices Nearly Headless Nick in the Half-Blood Prince video game. He also voiced Baloo for 53 episodes of a 2010 to 2019 Jungle Book series. Andre Lambert did additional voices. His only other acting credits are 2 appearances as Squirrel in Class of Nukem High Parts 2 and 3. Mark Lesser, not to be confused with Mark Lester, did the voice of Timon in Kingdom Hearts 2 and several additional crew credits on Pixar films. The rest of these credits are, I believe, for the American version of the film, but we watched the original French one. Cynthia Adler does the voice of Tiwa. We saw her last as Rocky in George Romero's Knight Riders. She does have an assortment of other voice work credits, but doesn't appear to be related to Charlie Adler, according to my cursory research. Barry Bostwick is the voice of Adult Terr. He's Brad Majors from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and next season we'll see him as Ace Hunter in Megaforce.
Who's Barry Bostwick? You remember that commercial?
I do.
No.
I'm Barry Bostwick.
Who is Barry Bostwick?
Mark Gruner played young Terr. We saw him last as Mike in Jaws 2. Marvin Miller is the Great Tree Chief and Master Cone. He has lots of credits from the early 40s through the mid-80s, my favorite being the voice of Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet. So he gets to be a voice in Forbidden Planet and Fantastic Planet. Monica Ramirez has additional voice credits. We saw her last in our minisode review of Seed of Innocence. Hal Smith voiced Master Sin, Old Ohm, and Sorcerer. He's Owl in The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and various TV series follow-ups. He's Otis on The Andy Griffith Show, and he's also the voice of Flintheart Glomgold, Gyro Gearloose, and Dr. Glockenspiel on DuckTales. He's also the voice of Jacob Marley's Ghost and Goofy in Mickey's Christmas Carol. Janet Waldo played Hollow Log Chief and Drag Child. She's also the voice of Judy Jetson, Penelope Pitstop, Josie of the Pussycats, and the early 70s incarnation of Morticia Adams. Her husband Robert E. Lee, not that Robert E. Lee, wrote Inherit the Wind, and so far on the show first Monday in October. I think that's everything we have for Fantastic Planet. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us tomorrow when we'll be discussing Lady Snowblood, which IMDb describes like so. A strikingly beautiful young woman is trained from birth to be a deadly instrument of revenge against the swindlers who destroyed her family. Swindlers? It's understating it a bit, I think.